When a man does emotional work, the woman feels stable in the relationship. When a woman does emotional work to support her partner, the man's experience of volatility in the relationship increases. So I stopped sharing my thoughts and feelings with my girl, the relationship improved, and now I'm alone again. This is like a really common thing that I've been hearing recently from men, that they can't really share their thoughts and feelings in their romantic relationship. There's all kinds of crap on social media about how, like a dude, like sharing his feelings gives people the ick. There's lots of people who say like, no, sharing your feelings is actually okay. There's a lot of dudes who are like, yeah, like I'll never do it again. I got punished for it. So like, what's the deal with this? Because half the internet is saying you should share your feelings. And the other half of the internet is like, don't ever do that. Makes you a pussy, makes you beta. And like, because they're alpha males, that means they're wrong, right? Like they have to be wrong if they're alpha males. They can't be on to anything. But one of the things that I've learned as a psychiatrist is when a human being comes into my office and says, this is my experience of life. I know it's insane in the day and age of social media, but I believe them. I start with belief. Right? Because if someone says, hey, this is my experience of life, and you're like, no, it isn't, you're wrong. I think that kind of thinking is what got us here. Like this is not a great place. And there's all this idea of like, okay, like sharing your feelings does improve relationships, right? So I tried to get into the research with it. Here's what I figured out. When it is okay to share your feelings and when it isn't okay to share your feelings, that both can actually be true, but there is a way to do it. And more importantly, there is a way not to do it. Right? And this is what usually happens in the world. It's not like this group is right and this group is wrong. Very few things in the world are black and white. So let's get into the data, okay? Self-disclosure in intimate relationships, associations with individual relationship and characteristics over time. If you actually look at data, not what is on your social media feed, self-disclosure in relationships is roughly the same between men and women. As hypothesized, positive associations were found between self-disclosure and the individual characteristics of self-esteem, relationship esteem, and responsiveness. Self-disclosure was also positively associated with relationship quality, satisfaction, love, and commitment. First thing is this is an association. So this says that self-disclosure is associated with self-esteem, is associated with relationship satisfaction. Now, here's the key thing. A lot of people will interpret this as causative. Therefore, it is okay to share your feelings in a relationship. That's not what this study shows. The study shows that it could be both ways. If you have self-esteem in a relationship, if you have a high-quality relationship, then you can share your feelings. It could be that way too. The two tend to cluster together. So this brings us to a really important basic principle of science. Relationships have never been easy. Anytime you interact with someone, you're dealing with their unique soup of emotions, expectations, and even traumatic baggage. And the fact that we're all texting now and dating apps are a thing is not making things easier. That's why we developed a coaching program to help our community with modern relationship problems. Working with a coach can help you build skills like setting boundaries, communicating effectively, and navigating conflict. So if y'all are struggling with your relationships, check out the link in the description below. We're going to talk about bell curves. When people say men are this way, women are this way. So if you look at sharing your emotions, this is men, and let's say this is women. Okay, so in most cases, even if there's a gender difference, which this paper does not say that there's a gender difference, we have to remember that there are some men who share a lot of their emotions and some women who share a lot of their emotions, but there are also plenty of women who don't share many of their emotions. There may be more men who don't share emotions or feel punished by sharing their emotions, right? So remember that we're dealing with overlapping bell curves here. So even though men may do something more than women, or women may do something more than men, the variance within a population almost always outweighs the variance between populations. So if you look at, there are some men that self-disclose a ton and some men that self-disclose very little. That difference, that delta, is going to be greater than the delta that you see between men and women. The other way to look at this is if we look at self-disclosure, the gap between this guy and this guy is this big. The gap between this woman and this woman is this big. But the gap between men and women is this big. Do you all understand that? So the variance within a population is almost always greater, which is why like a lot of this gender stuff on the internet is just wrong. Like it's just statistically, it's wrong. Okay. Second thing, here's what's really interesting. The more that women perceived their partner disclosed at time 1, the less likely the couple was to break up by time 2. This is a really interesting finding. If a woman believes that her partner is sharing their feelings, that is associated with a less likelihood of breaking up. So this would be data that suggests the opposite of what this person's experience is. Okay? So let's look at another paper. Self-disclosure in intimacy and interpersonal relationships, role of perceived partner responsiveness. Research shows that self-disclosure and perceived partner self-disclosure are essential in developing intimacy in a relationship. Likewise, perceived partner responsiveness, PPR, when interpreted as understanding, validating, caring, significantly impacts the intimacy of a relationship. So generally speaking, if you were to ask a mental health professional, like a psychiatrist or a psychologist, and personally, I think the average psychologist is probably better trained at this than the average psychiatrist. Is it good to share your feelings in a relationship? The average psychologist will say yes. We will say that if you want a healthy relationship, you should share your feelings. That is what we will say. And that's generally what the data shows. But it gets a little bit more complicated. So this is what's really cool. In relationships, there are 2 general goals that people will have. They'll have one or the other, usually. Some people have a goal to get closer. So I want us to be here and here. I want to be more intimate with you. I want to know you better. I want to know every part of you. I want to know your body inside and out. I know everything, all of your fears, all of your dreams. Tell it all to me. Let me know who you are and let me share what I am with you. And let us intertwine our souls and our bodies and we will be one together. And we are one soul split between 2 bodies. Oh my God. Oh my God. That's what I want from you. Right? That's the point of a relationship. Turns out, no. Turns out there is another thing that people will shoot for. Results consistently indicated that for prevention-focused individuals, being emotionally suppressive was associated with greater marital satisfaction, but only for those who perceive their spouses as also emotionally suppressive. So I'm going to explain this in just a second. Here's the key thing. In prevention-focused individuals, being emotionally suppressive was associated with greater marital satisfaction. What? Turns out, bro may have been right. So let's understand. So there is another thing, which is that in relationships, sometimes people drift apart. And in some relationships, the goal for people is not to get closer. The goal for people is to not drift apart, right? And if you guys have been in relationships, you know that sometimes you just don't want things to get worse. Things are okay the way they are. I don't need a whole lot of intimacy. I'm just trying not to screw it up. Things are fine. I like the status quo. I don't want to move. I don't want to have kids. I don't want to explore the world. Like, things are fine. Can we just like live our life the way it is right now? Do you really need to move to New York to follow your dreams? Can we just like have life as it is right now? I just don't want to screw it up. I'm happy with the way things are. I don't need to get closer. I just don't want things to get worse. So this is where, if we look at research, there is promotion-focused individuals, okay? And there are prevention-focused individuals. Wait, which one? Yeah. Okay? These are 2 different goals. So when we're dealing with promotion-focused individuals, they're moving in this direction. Other people are trying to not fall apart. So it turns out that emotional suppression is helpful in these situations, improves marital satisfaction. So it's not one or the other, right? So should you disclose in a relationship? This gives us our first answer. Well, it depends. Are you trying to not rock the boat, or are you trying to get closer? More importantly, remember that there's an element of partner responsiveness here, or partner perception, but only for those who perceive their spouses as also emotionally suppressive. So here's another thing, another really important thing. Does your partner express their emotions, right? So you want to match their energy if you want to maintain harmony. I'm not saying it's healthy or unhealthy. We're just trying to figure out, when is it okay to share your emotions with your partner? And when will it hurt things? Then we get to the next paper. For people with less social anxiety, relationship closeness was enhanced over time when negative emotions were openly expressed. So if you are not socially anxious, sharing feelings enhances closeness, whereas relationship deterioration was found for those more likely to withhold emotions, okay? So this makes, we're going to draw this out. Here is a person without social anxiety. When I share, things get better. When I don't share, things get worse. Okay, I gotta fix this. Make sense? Now, since I showed that paper, and it's a paper about social anxiety, what do y'all think is coming next? The reverse pattern was found for people with greater social anxiety, such that the relationship closeness was enhanced over time for those more likely to withhold negative emotions. If I am socially anxious and I don't share, relationship improves. If I do share, relationship goes down. Now this is getting to be a little bit tricky, a little bit scary. Oh my God. Because what I have seen time and time and time again as a mental health professional is that if my patients are mentally ill and they dump that on their partner, that we will lead to things, it will lead to things like caregiver burnout. It can be burdensome. I hate to say this, but this is kind of true, right? So like, if we look at something like major depressive disorder or generalized anxiety disorder, or heaven forbid, bipolar disorder, that's where I think I've seen the most damage. It's not about blaming a partner. It's to understand that if there is a diagnosis of bipolar disorder within a relationship, that becomes a challenge for the relationship. I'm not trying to make a judgment on whether this is fair or good or whatever. I'm simply pointing out that once mental illness enters the picture, this is a paper looking at social anxiety, sharing can actually deteriorate the quality of the relationship. So second thing where you have to be careful is if there is mental illness in the picture. Now, this sounds brutal, right? Because you're like, damn, Dr. K, are you basically telling me I'm fucked if I've got depression? I can't share my feelings like that. Like, I'm depressed. Like, it's bad enough that I've got depression, but I can't share my feelings. That's not what I'm saying. Don't be black and white, right? We're going to get to what to do about this. But, like, let's be honest. If you ask 100 people with depression, how does sharing your feelings impact your relationship? Not all of them are going to say, it makes it wonderful. What is y'all's experience receiving the negative emotional energy of your romantic partner? What is your experience of offloading your negative emotional energy onto your partner? Like, this is the reality we are living with, right? It's not my job to tell you, oh, hey, in a perfect, beautiful world, you can share all of your negativity with your partner and they will love you. No, guys, like, I hate to say it, like, it is a disadvantage. Mental illness is a disadvantage. That's why we try to treat it. We try to fix it because it fucks people's lives up, right? But it doesn't mean that things are hopeless. Like, please, God, do not interpret that from what I am saying. Let's be clear. When we're going up against the boss of a level, we should understand that the boss is a boss and not a regular mob. This is an uphill battle that we have to fight. We're going to help you fight it. But let's be clear. Let's not pretend that the problem doesn't exist. That doesn't help us. Now, we get to an even scarier part. So I'm going to ask y'all a question. This is going to be the hardest part. Y'all thought that was bad. When you see a tweet like this, or you have an experience like this, I shared my feelings with my girl, and the relationship got better, and now I feel alone again. This is why it's so damaging to try to understand relationships from social media, because I'm going to ask y'all a question, and hopefully that will show y'all why this is a terrible place to learn about relationship dynamics. I think it's a wonderful place to understand people's experiences, but it's a terrible place to get answers. And here's why. Simple question. When this person says the relationship improved, what are they measuring? And I'm not trying to shit on this person in particular. I love that this person is sharing this. I think it's really good that we're talking about it. We wouldn't be talking about it unless they shared their experience. But here's where half the answer is. When they say the relationship improved, how are they measuring it? Like, what is the indicator? What is your pre-test, post-test for improvement in the relationship? What is the time scale that we're talking about? Are we talking about a week? Are we talking about a month? How are you measuring? How are you measuring improvement? Is it your perception of improvement? Is it a certain behavior? Is it a perception of your partner? Are they even asking their partner? Did they ask their partner, when I was sharing my feelings, how do you feel about that? Well, now that I've stopped sharing my feelings, how do you feel about that? How are they measuring? And this is why, I hate to say this, the internet is not science. And this is the reason. This is the reason. You can have an experience, but this is not science. And here's the scary thing, because I found a paper that really highlights this. Gender emotion work and relationship quality, a daily diary study. Fuck yeah. This is a study that looks at relationship quality and the emotional work that people put in, okay? First, 3 patterns emerged. First, emotion work predicted relationship quality in this diverse set of couples. Second, gender differences were minimal for fixed effects. Third, this is what we're going to focus on. Gender differences were more robust for volatility. For partner effects, having a partner who reported higher average emotional work predicted lower volatility in love, satisfaction, closeness for women versus greater volatility in love and commitment for men. I'm going to explain what this paper says. We're going to go down here for a second. Women and men who reported higher average emotion work across a week experienced lower overall daily volatility in love, commitment, satisfaction, and closeness. Let's talk about what the hell that means for a second. So what is emotional work? Emotional work is kind of a grab bag. I don't remember exactly what the methods of this study are and how they defined it. I'm sure they use some kind of scale. But basically, it's how much emotional work do you do for the sake of your partner? The second thing is we're measuring volatility, okay? So what is volatility? Now, this finding is not that doing emotional work makes the relationship better. So this is what's really cool. It's a daily diary study. So it was 7 days. 5, 6, 7, okay? So then they asked them, how committed are you in this relationship? How committed are you in this relationship? Every single day. How much love do you feel? So volatility is this is low volatility. This is high volatility. So here's the really cool thing. Doing emotional work doesn't necessarily improve the relationship. It reduces the volatility. We go from this to this. When we do emotional work for our partner, the amount of love and commitment that we experience stays stable over time, okay? Now, this is where things get really, really tricky, okay? For women, having a partner who reported higher average emotional work predicted women's experience of lower volatility in love, satisfaction, and closeness. What does this mean? This means that when a man does emotional work, the woman feels stable in the relationship. That's what this means. When a woman does emotional work. You guys ready for it? I think you know what's coming. For men, having a partner who reported higher average emotion work predicted men's experiences of greater volatility in love and commitment. So this is really insane, y'all. When a woman does emotional work to support her partner, the man's experience of volatility in the relationship increases. So I like this study because it's methodologically very interesting. So what this study did is boyfriend and girlfriend are doing daily diaries where both of them are measuring some degree of emotional work. So man does emotional work, woman does emotional work. Then they're also measuring sense of love and commitment on both sides. So we're seeing both perspectives in one study. And what we discover is that when the woman does more emotional work, there is a greater sense of fluctuation in the man's sense of love and commitment. Now, there's a lot of stuff I'm not thrilled about this study. When you get to the discussion, they have a lot of interpretations based on various aspects of feminist psychology, the patriarchy. And not that that is wrong, but that I feel that it is incomplete. And there's other reasons for that. But anyway, they're like, the patriarchy. I think it's a convenient answer. I think it's probably more complicated than that. But here's the really scary thing. So if we look at this study, what this shows is that the man's subjective experience of love and commitment correlates with the level of emotional work that a woman is doing. I'm not trying to bash men here. Okay, it's not men's fault. But what I'm scared of and what terrifies me is this sentence right here. The relationship improved. In what way? How are you measuring it? And here's the really scary thing is your quality of perception. What I'm really scared by this particular study, the perception of your relationship is disconnected for men in this study. There were 74 couples, I think. is disconnected from the emotional work that women do. So the more she is doing, the more volatile you feel. So that's not what I would expect, right? What I would expect is something that is more akin to what we see in women, which is like the more effort that a partner is putting in, the more stable the relationship feels. So I think this is a situation where at the end of the day, like, why am I getting into this? I'm getting into this because I believe that we should understand. I do not want people reading this tweet and thinking to themselves, if you're a dude out there, I cannot share my problems with my girlfriend. But on the flip side, I also want people to understand if they read this tweet and they're like, oh my God, all men are so emotionally babies and it's all men's fault. We also need to understand that there are very real situations where sharing your emotions is not a good idea. That if men are having this experience, there's a reason for it. And it's not just because we're all babies in the patriarchy. Like, there's like real science at play here. Those are elements of it, to be sure. And the most important thing is we're seeing a dating and mating crisis where people are struggling to figure out what to do. Because on the one hand, some fucking psychologist is telling me, share your emotions. And on the other hand, when you share your emotions, people get dumped. So like, what am I supposed to do? And the answer is, be careful about how you share your emotions. First of all, is there mental illness at play? If there is mental illness at play, recognize that your partner's responsibility is not to be your therapist. So you can share some of your emotion, but they should not be your primary emotional outlet. That's number one. They should do the emotional work of a partner, not the emotional work of a therapist. Number one. Number two, what is my partner's level of emotional discussion? Right? So if my partner is sharing emotions, they're more likely to receive my shared emotion. Issue number three, is this relationship about maintaining harmony or getting closer? Does my partner demonstrate to me that they want to get closer? If they want to get closer, then it's okay to share. But if they're kind of in a, I don't know if you guys have had these relationships, but like these equilibrium relationships. Have you guys seen these relationships? Maybe you're in one where like, we're just kind of in equilibrium. The relationship isn't really going anywhere. It's like we're coexisting. Maybe there's love, but it's not necessarily moving in a direction. It's like maybe we'll get married one day, maybe we'll have kids one day. And it doesn't mean that an equilibrium relationship always remains in equilibrium, right? So I can talk about my relationship for a moment. I got married 7 years after I started dating this girl. And for those 7 years, we were sort of in an equilibrium relationship. And the reason we were in an equilibrium relationship is because we were settling our lives. So our relationship stayed the same while our lives were changing. And once our lives settled, then the relationship moved forward. Or we had to decide whether we wanted it to move forward or not, right? So once like stuff got settled. So that's normal. It's not, equilibrium relationships are not bad. But it's important to think about like, what's the goal here? Are we trying to get closer? Or are we like pretty content with where we are? And the third thing to keep in mind is that if you have a perception, your partner may have a different perception. I'm not saying one is right and one is wrong. It's not what this is, right? This is like, if you have this perception, how are you measuring it? What is your partner's experience of when you were sharing emotions and when you weren't sharing emotions? That is a critical piece of information, right? Because what I don't want is this. This is what I'm trying to prevent. Like, this is why I started streaming, to prevent this.